Live from MMA Fighting Studios, this is Between the Links. And now, your host, Mike Heck.
The iconic voice of Esterlin welcomes you to a brand new edition of Between the Links. Yes, it is Thursday. And once again, we are back with another live program on the MMA Fighting family of networks, YouTube, the podcast network, etc. And we're going to do something a little bit different today. We're not going to have a competition per se. Are we going to talk about UFC 296 and the fallout of Leon Edwards' successful title defense against Colby Covington? Yes, very briefly. And then we're going to preview the upcoming MMA Fighting 2023 year-end awards. We're going to be open books here, at least three of us anyways, and preview how these awards may go come next week when they start popping up. But I don't do this alone. Joining me this week, the co-host, the co-matchmaker of On to the Next One. He's the Prince of Positivity, and he's my best friend. And I believe he has some takes as well, Mr. Alexander K. Lee. AK, welcome back to the program.
Oh, hi.
Not a lot of pressure today.
It's me. I can't add to the win or loss record today?
No, you cannot.
That's good. It's not good because I was going to add to the well, we don't need to show people. I don't know why we're even bringing that up. Why do we need to show people? But yeah, end of 2023. Let's just get that. No.
It's like a boomerang.
I pushed it too hard. I forgot. End of 2023. It's time to take stock of our lives. Take stock of MMA, which really is our lives when you think about it. And I'm mostly excited about having to explain some of my my year-end selections.
Yes, and doing double duty this week. Jed on vacation, so we're tagging in the baddest stash in MMA, producer extraordinaire, Mr. E. Casey Leydon. Casey, welcome to the panel.
I hurt my neck. All right. I'm good. Ooh, God, I'm not used to this. This is too much camera for me.
We're off to a great start.
I'm very nervous. It's AK Lee. You see his record? Those are like lots of big. It was impressive.
Look, it's not a competition.
It's hard to lose that many times. No one's lost that many times.
Don't fear the man who's 10-0. Fear the man who loses 20 times and comes back for more. That's the guy you want to be afraid of.
Yes, and don't call AK the least intimidating person in BTL history or easy work. And we're going to get into that right now because, look, UFC 296 is over. We were super duper excited with how the event looked on paper. There were some great moments, no doubt about it. I feel like the UFC's year kind of ended in a whimper, and it's getting progressively worse. And we'll talk about that right now because Leon Edwards defeats Colby Covington, 49-46 across the board. This is not a really competitive fight. And let's be honest, it wasn't really a fun fight to go back and watch. I actually went back and watched it a second time. It's worse the second time around. I did.
What a fan.
I did. You got shows. You got to give takes. You got to give thoughts. You want to make sure everything's lined up. I'm watching it during the watch party, so it gets a little crazy. And all of the talk coming out of this event has to do with this fight and the aftermath of it. First of all, when it comes to Leon Edwards and being the welterweight champion, who he's going to fight next, it appears Bilal Muhammad should be the guy. We do have Shavkat Rakhmonov, who submitted Wonderboy Thompson, but he has an ankle injury. So all these dominoes continue to fall in Bilal Muhammad's favor. But even then, Dana White was not saying Bilal's name at the press conference. We got to go into the war room and figure this all out. Leon completely no-selling Bilal. Bilal doing his best to get Leon's attention. Leon barking back with some, Bilal, you're not very good at fighting. You're the worst on the roster, and it's easy work. And just bad all around, AK. You had warned me earlier. You have some takes. You have some things to say. How would you grade Leon Edwards post-victory over Colby Covington from the press conference, which, by the way, I've said a million times, I understand why you no-sold Bilal in that moment. But then everything that's happened the last 4 or 5 days. How do you grade Leon Edwards post UFC 296?
Post UFC 296 after the performance, not counting the win, just after everything after.
Count the win too if you want. Whatever you want to say.
So let me clarify for people. obviously, I think Colby was like one of the biggest losers of UFC 296. That's no question. He's not getting a title shot again. He embarrassed himself with his shtick, just completely falling flat at this point. But I'm kind of like, I live my life kind of like ignoring Colby. I we have to write about him sometimes. It's fine. We talk about him a lot. If anyone listened to the rankings podcast this week, I think it was like an hour of like Colby Covington talk. The guy is controversial. That's the whole point. So he certainly merits discussion. But generally, I try not to be as bothered by him anymore. So I didn't like relish, him failing as much. I want to focus more on Leon winning, which I think is what made it so disappointing to me that Leon has handled all this post-fight stuff in such a dull, dreary, anti-promotional way. Excuse me, guys. Sorry. And I don't care about him promoting for the UFC. That's fine. That shouldn't matter. As a fan, you shouldn't care about. You shouldn't matter whether Leon's not trying to sell pay-per-views. It's bad for business. If you're a fan, you shouldn't care about that. It has nothing to do with you. The UFC doesn't make you money anyway. But as far as but he needs to promote himself and his own legacy. And he's doing a really bad job of getting people to be interested in him, in Leon Edwards, the fighter. Whether it's about selling pay-per-views, making more money. And by the way, Leon, if you make yourself a little more compelling as a champion, you probably will make more money. Not as much as you deserve, but more. And just not naming who he thinks she should fight next, not calling anyone out, shooting down the obvious options that are there for him. It's just terrible to watch. It's bad television. It's bad sports entertainment. If you're a fan of Leon, that's fine. Leon has the right to shit talk whoever he wants. Some people are saying he's just troll. I saw some replies to a comment made earlier today on social media. He's trolling. Like, he's trolling Bilal Muhammad. He's trolling people. And my question would be, to what end? To what end is this trolling? Because he's bored? He just having a laugh? Okay, good. Good for you. You're having a laugh. But I don't want to hear any talk in the future from Leon of like, oh, why does no one respect me? Why does no one talk about me more? Why? And I think we've already had some of that kind of like, why did I never get my shot? Why did it take me so long to get a title shot? And it's like, you are not presenting yourself or your opponents in a compelling way. This Bilal thing is the perfect example. It's just, you cannot, it's not trolling is fine, but you cannot downplay an opponent this much, especially when you are very likely going to have to fight him, because you are making the fight mean nothing. You are potentially making your next title defense mean nothing. And that is so frustrating to watch. I know GSP is kind of singular when it comes to MMA history, but there are other fighters like him who they almost never, I don't think GSP ever did, downplay an opponent. So like, oh, I'm just gonna kill this guy. This guy doesn't belong to be in the cage with me. I'm gonna just crush him. Like, why would you do that when if you win and you beat this person, you just made your win look like nothing. You beat someone he called on Twitter the least intimidating man in the UFC. If you lose to him, you just lost to the least intimidating man. It makes no sense, guys. It makes no sense. It's really frustrating. He should have ended 2023 strong by laying out some sort of groundwork for his next plan. What's my next title defense going to be in London or in Manchester? But he did almost nothing of that. And his coach on the Mayor didn't do a great job at either. The whole Gilbert Burns thing is nonsense. We don't have to get into that again. So the grade is like no more than a C. I'll go C. He is the undisputed champion at 170 pounds, unless you ask Jed Meshew. So I'll go C, but I can't go higher. The post-fight talk has just been so dispiriting. And as you can tell from my body language and my tone of voice, I hate even discussing it.
It's just not good. Casey, what have you made of this? Like, different strokes for different folks. I get it. Some people love the trash talk, some don't. But you could still say, Bilal, I would just kick you in the face and knock you out, but not say you're not good at fighting, because that's not good. Because like AK said, win or lose, you look kind of silly no matter how that fight plays out, the way you're downplaying Bilal and his skills and the unbeaten streak he's currently on. So what have you made of Leon post UFC 296? And even with the performance, I mean, like I've said a million times, Colby handed him a win with the way he fought.
Real quick, okay, and yeah, I'm disgusted by the way Colby promoted the fight and all that stuff. But the weird irony is, Colby's horrible trash talk about his father actually became the most interesting part about Leon, because take away that from the fight, take away that kind of drama, him, having to emotionally kind of recover from what he said about his father and still fight a very smart fight was probably the most interesting part of the fight. Take that out of the equation, it is an extremely bad fight. Extremely bad fight. Even the post talk with Dave, his coach Dave Lavelle, talking about having to bring him back, focus and everything. It was like that was all interesting. So like it's just weird how the horribleness that Colby brought to it made Leon actually, I don't want to say interesting as a person, because I know he's interesting as a person. He just doesn't show it, I guess. So now that Colby's out of the equation, and now it's just talking about his next fight being Bilal probably, now we're just back to like, it's just, I don't know, it's bad. Yeah, I mean, everything AK said, it's just bad. Nothing's interesting, least intimidating. I was like, okay, cool. He doesn't, I don't know, he doesn't have enough, he doesn't have an 8-pack. I don't know, I don't get it. It's just nothing. It's just doesn't mean anything. I don't know why he's doing this. It's just, it's just kind of a waste of time. It's just, I feel like this is going to be just a big waste of time. Let's just let him fight and just move on with this welterweight division. The whole thing about Colby getting in there, the welterweight division is going to keep moving again. Now I feel like somehow we're stalled again for no real good reason.
Yeah. And it's so weird, right? Like, I get
he's the fight to make. He's the fight to make. Sell it. Go. You know what?
Sell it. Yes.
So I don't. But you, Leon, you're gonna have to train for this fight. You're gonna have to go in the gym. You're gonna have to work your butt off, make 170 pounds, promote the fight, and get in there and fight this man. I don't understand the end game right now for Leon in this type of talk.
Yeah, and again, we can't stress enough. We're not talking about him having to like do promotional work for the UFC. Promote yourself, Leon. Promote yourself and your legacy. He's falling a little bit into the same trap of Tyron Woodley. And again, welterweight. Welterweight is such a great division, and it feels like at the very top we've had so few moments to like just cheer. Kamaru Usman's run was very good. I think Kamaru's run was great. But Tyron Woodley, if you remember, he spent his whole run talking about fights with GSP and Nick Diaz. And then he ended up fighting Wonderboy Thompson, one really good fight, the other one stinker, whatever, not his fault. Damian Maia, forgettable fight, but fine. He did fight the top two contenders. And then later he would complain, like, why did no one give me credit for having this great title run? It's like, because you spent your whole time talking about other people other than the guys you beat. You should have been calling to fight Wonderboy the whole time. You should have been saying, I want to fight Damian Maia, the greatest grappler in welterweight history. Instead, he was always like, I don't like, if I have to fight these guys. And then later he complained about those wins not being credited enough. And I'm like, well, and I don't want Leon to go down that path, because Leon could have a really strong legacy at 170 if he plays his cards right.
He has a great story, everything.
Great fighter.
And I still have an issue with champions calling out fighters. I get it. It works sometimes, but if you're not that guy, don't call anyone out. You just say, hey, I'm number one. I'm number one for the UFC. UFC, give me your best. If you think Bilal is the best, I will beat him. You think Shavkat's the best? I will beat him. You think X is the best? I will beat them. That's all he has to say. Imagine
if he had just said that. That's so simple.
It's like, I'm the best welterweight in the world. Bring him. I will prove it again and again and again and again. Dude, that's all you got to do. You don't even have to say Bilal's name. It's just, I don't know. Sorry.
Or you could just be completely honest. And at least, like, people won't love this, but at least you'll get some sort of reaction, care or don't care, from the people. Because all of this screams to me two things. One, you want to make money. You want money fights, but you're just not coming out and actively saying it. Just say, like, look, Conor McGregor's probably going to come back and fight Michael Chandler. And you best believe that if Conor goes out and dusts Michael Chandler and he calls for a welterweight title shot, it ain't Bilal, it ain't Shavkat. It's going to be Conor McGregor getting that title shot. And Leon, there's probably a big part of him that hopes that is the case, because that is the biggest fight he could possibly get. It's the most amount of money he can possibly get. So I get that. You want to come out and say that? Cool. Like, people might roll their eyes a little bit, but at least you're being honest.
Yeah.
The other one is if Ian Gary goes out and busts up Jeff Neal in March in Miami, there's a world where there's enough momentum his way, whether you love him or hate him, where that's a big fight too, especially if they go back to Manchester or go to the UK with that fight. Like, that's a massive fight. That does pretty decent on pay-per-view. And again, the fact that they are probably going to the UK for Leon's next fight means the opponent doesn't really matter. That building's going to sell out. If you throw Leon, Bilal, Leon, whoever, and then Tom Aspinall in the co-main event, they're going to do bonkers business at that arena. Will it do tremendous on pay-per-view? Who the hell knows? But look, at the end of the day, you just got to be better at this. You just got to be better at putting yourself over, because Leon's a fascinating guy. Dude's been through a lot. Like,
yes,
make that part of your story.
Yeah,
he's got an interesting story, but he's just not interesting, like an interesting character, if you will, when it comes to like self-promotion. So I want to talk about Colby in a second, but real quick, AK, magic $20 flies out of the sky. You pick it up. It tells you, look, the only thing you can spend this $20 on is you have to bet on who Leon Edwards is fighting next. Are you putting it on Bilal Muhammad, or are you not so sure after hearing Leon and then Leon's coach and then even Dana White just not even being that guy who, by the way, after Leon beat Usman, said, hey, Colby's next. The dude showed up, made weight. He's next no matter what. I don't care what happens along the way, which he didn't do with Bilal.
I am going to bet on Bilal. I think they'll do the right thing whether they want to or not. It just might just be the only option. We mentioned Shavkat is just kind of out of the picture for the next little while. Of course, he had an ankle injury. Was it ankle? What was the injury he had? Ankle, right?
Shavkat?
Yeah.
Ankle, yeah.
Yeah, so, he's smart. He said, give Bilal the shot, and when I come back, I'm getting my shot. I have time to rest in the sidelines. This is a logical time. Even he knows, right? So I will bet on it. Again, McGregor would be too far away, even if he somehow fights at UFC 300 and starts as Michael Chandler and is healthy enough to want to compete again and wants to fight Leon Edwards for the welterweight title. If all those things come true, that's still not until summer or third quarter of 2024. You never know with McGregor, right? So, or 2025, who knows? So if you're Leon, you're not waiting for that. I think it's got to be Bilal. It might even be, I don't know, they book someone else and they get injured and Bilal gets the shot. It could be a Jed Meshew. The UFC is always one injury away from doing the right thing situation. But I think the cards will line up, and I will bet $20 that he'll fight Bilal. And I think it was Casey, you raised it on another show, the best point that they've never had someone weigh in as the backup that they didn't at least consider someone who was going to fight for the title someday. People might argue Gamrot, but I think Gamrot is a top 10 guy, and I think he will fight for the title someday, or at least the UFC. If he doesn't, I think the UFC does see him as someone who could. So that was a very good endorsement for Bilal that I hadn't thought of before. So safe bet, $20. I do think Bilal's going to get it.
You doing the same, Casey?
Yeah, I think Bilal's the guy. Yeah, I just don't understand why the UFC isn't going, this is the guy. I don't get it. I mean, we had the soundbite, the whole Colby weighed in. All Bilal needs to do is take that quote and just put a little marker, scratch out Colby's name, and then put his name, and boom, it's his fight. I don't get it. It's right there for him. Yeah, it makes sense. I feel is this some kind of weird? Is the UFC are they outthinking us? By giving us a fight, by telling us we don't want the fight, we're gonna want it more. Is this some weird thing? I don't know what's going on. For some reason, I want this fight now because even though I don't want it, because I don't really care anymore. Yeah, just do it.
Let these two guys fight. Just let them fight, and then Shavkat fights the winner when he comes back. That's it. Then we can move this division along. And I saw some people say well, Shavkat doesn't have a top 5 win. So what? He's got 2 top 10 wins, and he finished both guys.
What is top 5? What is the criteria? A top 5 win? That's not a criteria. The criteria that you.
Islam Makhachev didn't even have a top 10 win, but we knew this guy's probably the best lightweight in the world.
We have eyes. We have eyes. We know that this guy's ready.
Yeah. At some point, you just have to pull the trigger, guys. There is no perfect challenger. You got to understand. I shouldn't say that. There's probably been instances where the timing worked out just perfectly, and the number one contender, rightful guy, got the shot. It's probably happened a bunch of times, but often, just as many times, there's not a perfect contender. If you look at, again, anyone's great title runs, you'll find title contenders who was their win before. I think I always bring up John Fitch is a great example. Who was his win before fighting GSP? It was Chris Wilson. Most of you guys don't even know who Chris Wilson is. He was a solid UFC guy, and John Fitch at that point had just won, I think, something 16 straight fights or something, and that was just the last win.
History forgets that.
Yeah.
Once you get that title shot and the fight happens,
you just get the title shot.
Completely forgets how the contender got that shot. It's pretty much forgotten. Yeah.
Yeah, we all want the cards to line up like perfectly and like, oh, like the hype just peak at the right time. The way the UFC schedule is, the way the rapid fire schedule, 14 pay-per-views a year, 40 something fight cards a year, it's pretty much impossible to do that these days, to like line it up perfectly. So, you're always going to be able to find holes with every contender. So
On the Colby side, as I was watching on the watch party, I said something to GC. I got a little flack for it. It just seems like Colby was trying to hide something. Like, that's what I felt like in the second and third round. I'm like, he's fighting like a guy hiding an injury. And I didn't know if it was like an injury that he suffered prior to the fight or in the fight. It just seemed like the aesthetics of it. And I wasn't trying to make excuses for Colby, because he signed the dotted line, he fought, and he just was not competitive at all. But it just seemed like he was trying to hide and mask an injury. That's just what I saw at the time. And then even rewatching it, I'm like, yeah, it still kind of feels that way, but I'm not taking anything away from Leon at all. Colby's doing some media after this fight, AK. He went on Fox News. I'm not even going to touch that with the 10-foot pole because it was just trash. With the interviewer like, let's look at this and look at this. I didn't watch the fight, Colby, but it looks like you won. What are you talking about? But Colby went on with Patrick Bet David, the PBD pod, and he apparently walked in to that conversation with a boot on and then told PBD and the rest of the fellas, broke his foot in the first 30 seconds of the fight, threw a high kick, hit Leon in the elbow, and he broke his foot right away, knew that he broke his foot right away. And the reason for his performance was because he's basically fighting on one foot. If this turns out to be true, Colby did say he's going to release some x-rays. Does this change your perspective on the fight at all, AK? Does it change your perspective on Colby's performance? Or was the fallout of the fight him saying that he got robbed because of Vegas judges and all of Vegas hates Trump? Is that not enough to change your opinion on the performance, the fight, and the aftermath?
It doesn't change it much, and mostly because I don't believe anytime someone steps in that cage, one, I don't think they're anywhere at 100% health. I'm sure if you ask any fighter, they might tell you they had the best camp ever. They might tell you they felt fantastic in the locker room, but just what they put themselves through to prepare for a fight, I think at best they're at like 80% on fight night. And 80% of a high level MMA fighter is, better than the majority of the population, but it's still 80%. You're not healthy. If you agree to sign on and you get in there, you just can't use injuries as an excuse anymore. We didn't let TJ Dillashaw get away with it. That was crazy. And like right after, he was like, "Oh yeah, I had a bad shoulder this whole time," and we were like, "What?" So I don't view that performance any differently. It was bad in the moment, probably made worse knowing he was injured. Colby, I don't know if it makes it worse. I won't say that because I'm with you, Mike, and our Slack was all over. We were like, "Is Colby hurt?" Like he looks so. Like, say what you want about Leon's style. It's a very strong style. It's a very neutralizing style. Even then, you thought you would have seen more from Colby. And we've seen guys who we know were nursing injuries before or broke a hand, or in this case, again, he says he tweaked something in his foot. We've seen that in the past. You know what that looks like. That is what that looked like on fight nights. So it's not an excuse. Again, he got in there. He continued to fight. If his foot was broken, his corner could have ended the fight. It made it look bad, but either way, he did the next 4 rounds. He was in there. I don't think you can judge it differently. I don't think you can say he would have necessarily, you definitely can't project and say he would have won the fight if his foot hadn't broken in the first round. There was a lot more wrong there than just an injury. Call it age, call it a bad style matchup, call it just Leon just being way better than him. So it doesn't really change much for me.
What do you think, Casey? Because if that's the case, you would think that Colby probably talked to somebody in the UFC brass, maybe even talked to Dana when he got backstage, and may have told Dana, "Hey, I broke my foot in the first 30 seconds of the fight." But Dana didn't mention that at the press conference, said Colby looks slow and old. So if he broke his foot, you would think that Dana would know before going up to the press conference. Maybe Colby wasn't 100% sure, but he seems to think that he felt it early. But if it turns out you see x-rays, it's legit, does this change your opinion? I saw your thumb go down really slow and dramatically.
Absolutely not. It's a complete bullshit excuse. Okay, first of all, if you're going to break your foot in a fight, sell it. Like, walk to the press conference with a freaking limp. Their adrenaline's gone. That's like and by the time Colby came out to the press conference, that's an hour after the fight, maybe, at least. You're going to have a limp. Your adrenaline's gone. I don't understand. Like, it was so broken, you still walked fine, or what, you were faking it for the press. And, like, you had the post-fight press conference. You had the in-cage interview. You probably did other interviews before you came to the post-presser. You knew your foot was broken then, but you decided to come out with the excuse of, "Oh, all the judges were liberals." That's why I lost. And so like 3 days later, you go on some rando podcast. It wasn't that. It was because my foot was broken from the first kick I threw. It isn't. That's your fault. That's on you. You didn't come into the fight with injury. You threw a stupid kick, a naked kick, and Leon blocked it properly. Boom. You kicked an elbow. Don't kick elbows. That's what you like. That's when you throw kicks. That's always a risk. You're gonna break. If you kick an elbow, you kick a knee. That's gonna really hurt you. So that's all on you, Colby. If you broke it because Leon blocked it. Like I don't like what's Leon blocked your kick, so you broke your leg, you broke your foot. That's on you. You lost the fight. Then it's not even an excuse. It doesn't make sense. That's like saying I lost the fight because I got punched. You know, it's like the guy punched me, so I lost the fight. That's BS. I don't know. It's not an excuse. I don't get it.
Well,
it really annoys me. It really annoys me.
Boy, the most chaotic year in UFC, one of the most chaotic years in UFC history, kind of ends like this, and it's I don't know, the last impression wasn't great, but let's be fair, the first impression of 2023 wasn't great either. But everything sandwiched in between the New Year's Eve incident and
I was like,
everything that happened with Phil Baroni and all this other crap, like so much happened along the way, and yeah. That's what we're going to kind of talk about right now. So that's UFC 296. Look, we have reacted to this card and all the storylines all over the freaking place, from the MMA Hour to our post-fight show to Heck of a Morning. So let's have some fun here. Let's talk about, it's award season now. The final UFC event is in the books. It is officially award season. So I think we're going to start dropping our awards Monday. I think that's when the first one drops. We're going to have an award show as well. So stay tuned for that. So you'll see how this all plays out. But we want to be open and honest with you. We don't want to just flub together a bunch of things. This is a very meticulous way that we go through these awards. Everyone goes through their top fives. We add up a point total, and that's who wins. No matter whether you like it or not, that's who wins. So I figured, like we have done the last few years, we'll go through our top fives. We'll preview the awards, gentlemen. Are you excited for this? Are you ready to do this?
Woo-woo.
Yes, I love it.
I'm scared to be judged.
Well, it's just the way that it is.
I'm glad the other guys aren't here. I'm glad it's just you two, my two best friends.
Oh, now I'm very excited. I have not looked at everybody else's voting, but we'll reveal them right now. So we're going to start with Rookie of the Year. All right. Rookie of the Year is one of the awards that we give out. It is for a fighter who signed with a major organization and had their first fight within that organization in 2023. And did they break through? How did it go? Et cetera, et cetera. So AK, let's begin with you. Start from number 5, go to number 1. Who are your Rookie of the Year nominees / top fivers?
All right. Do you want me to break them down as I go along here, Mike, or just read them all out first and then break it down after?
You could do a brief little breakdown of each if you'd like.
Okay. Some of them might need a quick explanation. All right. I went with, it's not a splashy looking list, but I'm happy with it. So I went with number 5, featherweight Muhammad Naimov, who, well, he's a featherweight now, but he actually made his debut earlier this month against Jamie Malarkey, takes him out second round TKO, and then beats very tough Nathaniel Wood at UFC 294. So I think he's a little bit under the radar, mainly because even before the UFC, he's not like some huge prospect that joined the UFC. He's just kind of just hasn't been around that long. He hasn't been around that long. So he made a big splash for me. Jesus Pinedo in the PFL. I forgot he was eligible for rookie because really you could have made a case for him for also fighter of the year. He was the PFL's featherweight tournament champion. Beats Bubba Jenkins, beats Brendan Loughnane, takes out 2 of the top guns in the PFL. And then he did lose earlier this year. He did lose the beginning of the year to the guy who would eventually beat in the PFL tournament final to win $1 million. So that's not a bad debut in a major organization. So Jesus Pinedo, congrats to you, sir. Number 3, probably controversial, had to go Cedric Doumbé. Again, not a guy with a lot of UFC experience. We're going PFL again, but one of the most talked about debuts for sure. And a guy who has, I'll tell you right now, to spoil my top 2, my list does not have Bo Nickel. And I think my case would be, I guess I see Cedric as having, I don't say higher upside, but kickboxing just being a little more tangentially related to MMA. I don't know. It's not a great explanation, but I did think that Doombay's debut was just made a bigger impact. Maybe that's what I'm saying. Maybe made a bigger impact. I'll probably kick myself in a year when Bo Nickal's fighting for the middleweight title, but I thought Doumbé was one of the biggest stories of 2023, as was Bo Nickal, but he didn't make my list. Diego Lopes, number 2. Diego Lopes. Number 2, I don't know what more you can say about this guy. Great fight with Evloev, didn't win, but looked fantastic in his debut. Came into the UFC with a ton of experience. He's a rookie, really, a name only. He's a UFC rookie, but he has a lot of experience. He's a guy who's ready to be a top 15 guy right away. Picked up 2 wins after that. Also did some great coaching in the year. But number 1, it's not a sexy pick, but this guy, you talk about coming out of nowhere. I had to go with Elvis Brenner. Hey, listen, maybe you guys are smarter than I am, and people have been on the Elvis Brenner train for years or something, and I'm late to the wagon. But he comes in and beats Tukakov. I think it was on short notice, and split decision win over Zabara Tukakov. Crazy. Takes out Guram Kutalatse, and then gets kind of, not a layup, but an easier win to close out his year, but takes care of business. First round knockout of Kenan Kushevsky. So I thought Brenner, he's just chaos, and he brought chaos to this year. And again, what we said is a chaotic year. So I don't know if there's a more fitting pick for the 2023 rookie choice, because again, I don't know what to expect from this guy. You could convince me that he's going to be a top 10 guy in by summer. You could also convince me that he's on a 2-fight losing streak and 1 fight away from being released. I have no idea, but I'm just very, very excited to find out what's next for Elvis Brenner.
So just to make life easier, I have 4 of the same 5 guys.
Okay.
I have Brenner at 4, Doumbé at 3, Bo Nickal at 2. Because, I mean, dude, so much friggin' buzz around that guy. Diego Lopes is my number 1. Okay. Because even with a loss, him going in on less than a week's notice and giving Movsar Evloev hell, who is maybe a win away from fighting for a title, was super duper impressive. And then my number 5 was Ikram Aliskerov. This guy is going to fight for the title. He is a terror, and it's unfortunate that his opposition wasn't spectacular, but at least he treated them accordingly. Doing what he did, Worley Alvarez and Phil Haas. They booked him to fight Paulo Costa in July. They announced the fight and everything. Never came to fruition, but now he's going to fight Anthony Hernandez. And you would expect if he goes out and beats Fluffy, then he's got a big fight on the horizon. That dude's a problem. So, yep, Lopez, Nickal, Doumbé, Brenner, Aliskerov, my top 5 from 1 to 5. Casey, are you on the same wavelength, or do you have a different list?
Mine, excuse me. Mine's very similar to yours. A little different though. My number 5 is Nazim Sadak. How do you say his last name?
Sadikov. I like that.
Sadikov. Yeah, he was
Sadikov.
almost on the list. Almost.
Yeah, he went 2 wins and 1 draw this year. 2 stoppages. Came super close to finishing Slava Claus, and we'll talk about that fight later because I absolutely love that fight. But he really impressed me. Although but under the radar, like I kind of had to look at the stats, like, oh, he's had a really good year. Like it really snuck up on me. Number 4, Cedric Doumbé, for obvious reasons, only 1 fight, but I'm kind of bringing in his the impact he brought to the sport. Rookie of the year is a weird category, so I'm kind of counting what you do in the cage and also your impact you brought to the sport. So for Doumbé, it's more the impact he brought to the sport and potential kind of, he's a main eventer, for who knows how long. But it's very exciting. Number 3, Ikram Aliskerov. Dude, the guy is scary, and I think he's gonna be a top 10 fighter for many years, and we're gonna be saying his name a lot. Number 2, I think people forgot about him because in the last kind of quarter of the year we didn't really talk about him too much. But Bo Nickal is a number 2 rookie of the year, and number 1, Diego Lopes.
There you go.
The guy,
solid list.
Guy blew me away. Guy blew me away. I don't like guys like Nickal, Aliskerov. I can see them fighting for the title. I don't actually see Diego Lopes fighting for the title, but I don't care. He's just an extremely exciting fighter with a great personality and a wonderful haircut. And he's must-see TV. So that's why I have him at my number 1 rookie of the year.
Love that. Good lists. Good list, gentlemen. Hopefully there's not too many people being super judgmental in the comments.
Yeah,
So
good. Well, never. Good crop.
Wow.
Pretty good crop of rookies. I did. I joked, guys. I joked in the in our comments that like, there's not a lot of, except I think Bo Nickel the only American who made our shortlist.
My list, at least.
I'm pretty sure.
yeah.
No, I'm looking. We did obviously a short list just to make things easier for everyone. So some of the names on there, guys, that didn't. Everyone, we just read our list. Everyone we named. Bo Nickel's the one we named. Some other names like Vitor Petrino, Brazilian. Steve Urseg, Australia.
Oh yeah,
Matusz,
you're right.
Yeah, Matusz Rebeski, Poland. So a lot of good rookies for sure, but not that many Americans. So
Also, no women made our. I mean, I was
no,
actually
not our
trying
top 5.
I was looking. I was like, man, I can't find any top women fighters that kind of broke big this year.
If Natty Ice
Debuted.
debuted like a month later, she would have made the list.
Yes,
It has this like weird time, like they debuted like in November or something. So
Yeah.
It's a lot of.
Yeah.
I get it.
Natty Ice, I almost put her on there anyways because it was just a month. But she would have absolutely. She might have been number 1. She was that good.
Yeah.
But she would have definitely made my top 5 had she just pushed back that debut a month. So, so that's Rookie of the Year. Pretty solid list right there. Let's go to Fight of the Year. Fight of the Year. Casey, I'll start with you because you teased the Slavaklaus Nazim Sadikov fight. And I will say, had a fight not recently happened, that would have been on my list as well. But it didn't make mine. Let's run off 5-1. Okay. Fight of the Year.
My fight of the years are number 5, brand new to the list. Congratulations. Arena Adana versus Carol Hosa. Just an awesome fight. Just, you saw it. It's very fresh on our memory. Just like, I think I'm very weird about fight of the year. Sometimes I'm like, the fight has to have heavy stakes, high stakes and, drama. But the reason I kind of like this fight is because it was a mid-card fight. We did a bunch of preview shows. I think we talked about this fight for maybe 4 seconds on all these preview shows coming into that event. And it turns out it was just like this, just an awesome, like true fight. Like, I mean, there's mixed martial arts and there's fights. This felt like a fight. So I love that fight, and I'm a big fan of Arena Adana. I was kind of bummed about her performance against Nunes, so I'm glad we kind of got a reminder on how awesome she is and what an exciting fighter she is. Number 4, this might be, I don't know. I put Makhachev versus Volkanovski 1 at UFC 284. Just high stakes, lots of drama. Mainly, I'm putting this fight because of the high stakes and how close the fight was. Not necessarily because it was, like, to me, a very like, oh, this guy almost got finished or anything like that, like crazy comebacks, but just a super high level fight that delivered. Number 3, Shavkat versus Jeff Neal, just because that fight was nuts. Watch it. Number 2, from UFC 295, a fight also much like Adana Rosa, no one talks about coming into. Nazim, Sadikov, and I'm just going to go Slavaklaus. I'm not even going to work on that name. That fight just ruled. And I like that fight because it was very rarely do we see like a true perfect draw. And this was like the perfect draw where like a true guy getting his butt kicked and then coming back and getting that 10-8 round to tie it up and with a 28-28, I think the final score. So I just love that fight. But number 1, because the fight had everything, a finish, high stakes, drama, championship, Pantoja versus Moreno at UFC 290 for my number 1 fight of the year.
I love that list. AK, what you got?
Do you want me to go from the bottom up again?
Yeah, I mean,
I'll spoil it now. I got the same number 1. I got the same number 1.
Oh, okay.
But I will.
All right.
I'll go from the bottom and build back up. Dan Hooker, Jalen Turner, really great fight. Just one of those fights where it seems to have a pretty obvious narrative where Jalen Turner's the guy coming up, and Dan Hooker. He was coming off a win, but we still get the sense like, okay, this is his role now, is to be the litmus test. And in this case, he was a super tough test for Jalen Turner because the fight builds up. It takes a little bit of time to ramp up, but once it does, boy, I mean, the guys are just smashing each other. A lot of damage done in this fight. And I still think there's massive things ahead for Jalen Turner. He came out on the wrong end of a split decision here. But it was nice to see Dan Hooker be able to kind of reach down. He's always had a reputation for toughness and to be able to reach down and survive some scary moments and come back and get that win. So I love that. Number 4, Ultimate Fighter Never Die, Tough 31, Kurt Hollabaugh versus Jason Knight. Casey, you were there with me. You were there. This fight is the rare instance where I'll be one to say that fights in the Apex and fights that are pre-taped, it's hard to kind of capture the magic of like a live fight in an arena. But this was the perfect setting for this fight. One, because in the Apex, you could hear just these two smacking each other with punches and kicks for 15 straight minutes. And 2, it was pre-taped, so they could I think the production team could beef up the sound a little bit, really get that smack in there. So it came off great. If you guys haven't watched that fight, please find a way to watch Kurt Hollabaugh and Jason Knight. We used the phrase nonstop action a lot. This was literally, I don't think they stopped punching each other for 15 minutes. It was just combinations, just smacking each other. It's such a good fight, and Ultimate Fighter obviously is the best show ever. And were I allowed, I would have made that fight number 1, but I think someone would have killed me. Top 3, all big money fights. Grasso Shevchenko 2, Makhachev Volkanovski 1, and Pantoja Moreno. So Pantoja Moreno at top. Casey, did you have Grasso Shevchenko on your list?
I ended up not putting it on my list for best fight of the year. Okay. I have it on the list for other things, but not for best fight of the year.
All right, I won't go too far into it because I think I'll have to talk about it more later, at least especially the scoring. But it's just a brilliantly competitive fight. As I was watching it again, it actually reminded me a little bit of a previous fight of the year winner, the Glover Teixeira Yuri Prochazka fight. Not quite as sloppy, but the same kind of roller coaster, like back and forth. It didn't end with, and it didn't have an insane ending like a striking specialist submitting maybe the best grappler in his division, but it still certainly had no shortage of drama by the end, of course, when the cards were read. So I love that fight so much. So that was my number 3. And then Makhachev Volkanovski 1 and Pantoja Moreno, which again, the number 1, Pantoja Moreno, skill level, action, drama, changing of the storyline, right? Pantoja had beaten him 2 times before that fight. The promise of a 4th fight, I think, it has everything. I love that fight. I love that you put an
exhibition fight on there. A fight that didn't even count.
It was on the Ultimate Fighter. Excuse me, what did I just say? What did I just say?
Dude, so on my top 10, AK, I had Jason Knight on there, not once, but twice.
Oh,
my top 10.
Yeah,
my top 10. Hollabaugh is on there, and Jason Knight, Randy Costa at Gamebred FC was my number 10 fight of the year. But none of them made the top 5. Number 5. UFC 286, the co-main event, best division in the sport. And this fight was really, really good. If you haven't gone back and watched in a while, highly recommend it. It's super fun. Justin Gaethje versus Rafael Fiziev, incredible fight. Really, really good. Gaethje digs down deep and gets the win. Number 4, Irene Aldana versus Carol Hosa. Number 4, well done. Rakhmonov Neal, number 3. Pantoja Moreno was my number 2 pick. It was super close. A lot of flipping back and forth, but in the end, I ultimately went with Islam Makhachev versus Alexander Volkanovski 1, mostly because between February and October, anytime Islam was mentioned, so was Volk. Anytime Volk was mentioned, so was Islam. Just the long-standing ramifications that fight brought to us from a talking points perspective. There was no other fight that did that had such a long hangover and aftermath. And it just took a first round short notice head kick in October in the rematch to actually ice that conversation altogether. So I went with this on Volk for the stakes, the build, and then the fallout that lasted many, many, many months. It was probably the most impactful fight of the year, if we're being honest. So all things considered, that one squeaks it out, but no wrong way. I mean, if you want to say Pantoja Moreno's fight of the year, I got no issue with that whatsoever. So let's go to the submission of the year. A lot of great options here, both in and out of the octagon. So I'll go first. I will go number 5 from UFC Las Vegas, not UFC Vegas, UFC Las Vegas, the one Vegas non-pay-per-view card that took place outside of the Apex because The UFC was like, nah, dude, we're doing power slap in here, so we're going to boot you out to this, which I loved. That was the one headlined by Murad Dvalishvili and Petr Yan. Same division, Davy Grant submitting Rafael Assunção, retiring him. That was pretty nasty inverted stuff from Davy Grant. Really incredible stuff. So that is my number 5. Inverted omoplata alert, guys. Louis Glisman submitting Melvin Van Sydom. Octagon MMA, inverted omoplata. That is my number 4. Number 3, look, is this the most aesthetically pleasing submission of all time? No, but it's one that we talked about quite a bit. John Jones versus Cyril God. He becomes the heavyweight champion, made it look easy. It was a nasty little guillotine choke. And speaking of UFC 285, that's where we're ending the list as well. Number 2, Shavkat Rakhmonov versus Jeff Neal, also from UFC 285 with the standing rear naked choke / bully choke. That was incredible ending, just a wild fight. And obviously, I don't know how you can go any other different way here. The number 1 submission of the year, Alexa Grasso submitting Valentina Shevchenko in the co-main event of UFC 285 to win the women's flyweight title out of nowhere. Massive underdog. Just a moment we talked about. And one of the most memorable moments of the year because during the watch party, we watched Jed Meshu's bank account go to 0 because of that moment. So yes, Alexa Grasso, submission of the year winner for me. AK, is it a similar list for you?
Definitely some. Were those top 3 were all 285?
All 285.
The Rakhmonov Neal one?
Yep. That was 285 as well.
Yeah, that's a great card.
It was a really good card.
I remember us all having like a big, I guess a smile just because there was so much to talk about after the card. I mean, that was a good night. So definitely some similar ones. So my number 5, I'm with Karine Silva and Ketlin Souza. This one was just super nasty, like the super nasty leg lock, and it disturbed me when it happened. I actually think I avoided it the night of, and I somehow ended up watching it later, and I was like, why did I watch this clip? And that just haunts me. So normally this is where I tell people, oh, make sure you go out and find this submission. No, if you didn't see it, don't watch it. Don't watch it. It's a horrible scene. It's not like super graphic. It's just when you see it happen, you know when the leg popped and you know how badly Ketlin Souza is hurt. And it's not a fun thing to think about. Number 4, same with you, my best friend Glisman and Van Sydom. You guys can find that clip online. 6 submission. 3, Rakhmonov Neal. 2, I gotta show some love to my people. Know I write Miss Fists, collection of regional and international highlights on MMAfighting.com. Great website. So I would be remiss if I didn't shine the spotlight on one of these more obscure finishes. So I went with, and I've got to get these names right. Aktor Batirbek versus Shahzad Jurakulov at Octagon 46. Again, an event I know you all watched. I don't know why I'm saying it like this. But he hits him with I thought it was a Suluev stretch variation. According to Topology, it's a triangle choke. So it's a triangle choke like Suluev stretch combination. So if you can envision that, great, then you know how sick this is. If you can't, you have to seek it out, and you'll be mystified as I was at this rare, probably once in a lifetime maneuver. And then number 1, Grasso Shevchenko. Nothing else needs to be said. Great submission, great moment. That's number 1.
Casey, what's your list look like?
My list is number 5, Tatiana Suarez's arm-in guillotine over Jessica Andrade. I'm actually watching it right now. Just technically, just a great submission. Technically, she went for the Darce first, and then Andrade defended the Darce perfectly, which opened her up for the arm-in guillotine. It was just like, this is stuff I wish I could do in the mats. I look at it, I'm like, God dang, so good. Number 4, Shavkat Rakhmonov, standing bulldog choke over Jeff Neal. That was just brutal. I don't even know if you really trained that. You just kind of see ahead. I'm just gonna squeeze your head off. That's just one of those things. Like you don't need, like, it's almost the opposite of what I previously said about Suarez Andrade. We're like, oh, that's so highly technical. I'm just gonna squeeze your head so hard. Then I just love that. Number 3, Karine Silva with the, I guess, kind of heel hook over Souza.
Ugh.
Just nasty. nasty stuff. That's all. I kept watching it. And how you can see Souza's knee go like bloop, like ugh.
Ugh. Casey, stop. Stop it, Casey.
Yeah, it's just so brutal, so brutal. And number 2, just because of the high stakes of the event and the storyline, John Jones over submitting Ciryl. And number 1's pretty easy. Alexa Grasso with the rear naked choke. Was it a crank or was it a rear naked choke? I'm still not 100% sure. But over
it was officially stated as a rear naked choke.
I almost think it's a crank. I only thought it was a crank because when she releases it, there's that that imprint of Grasso's hands across Shevchenko's jawline. So either way, it doesn't matter. Just a great submission, just powerful out of nowhere, great comeback, great just all-time submission. Alexa Grasso over Valentina Shevchenko is my number 1 submission of 2023.
All right.
So we all had Shavkat Jeff Neal? Was that the only one we all 3 of us had, I think?
And Grasso.
Oh, and Grasso Shevchenko, obviously, outside of the number 1. I just want to add one more note.
No, you didn't have John Jones in yours?
I did not.
Oh, you didn't? Okay.
He's a coward who doesn't want to fight Tom Aspinall. He's not making my list. Hashtag gaslight. Gaslight John Jones.
That's not your bit. Yeah.
It's not a bit. That's reality. Hashtag Jed Mishu. Hashtag gaslight John Jones. I'm glad we all had the Shavkat one because the one thing that I hate is people saying, "Oh, he was kind of exposed in this Jeff Neal fight. Like, he got hit a lot." And I'm like, if you just and you shouldn't just take the finish. It's true. There were moments that certainly showed some weaknesses, what Shavkat needs to work on, whatever. But if that's the fight that he was quote unquote exposed in, this fight where he's just grabbing a dude's head on the standing up and just choking the life out of him. He was exposed in that fight. That shows you how good this guy is.
He won both rounds. He won the first and second round.
He got hit a few times, I guess.
I see it as a guy likes to have fun.
And Jeff's good.
And likes to finish.
And Jeff hits hard. He hits hard. He's one of the hardest
Jeff
hitters.
dominated Bilal Muhammad. He dominated Bilal Muhammad. That fight was not close. He beat Bilal.
Shavkat is number 3 in our divisional rankings right now, and I see a lot of comments across social media saying how is he so high if he hasn't beaten this person? It's when you finish fights, it adds a little extra sauce to you, at least as far as how we can project you, because beating Jeff Neal by decision would have been great, amazing win, great win. Finishing him, going that extra mile to finish and leave no doubt about it, that is what takes you to another level in my eyes. Again, people can disagree, but I like a finisher. Decisions are good. Love GSP, one of the best decisionators of all time, but I like finishes too.
Yeah. It's very rare to finish Wonderboy Thompson. Only Anthony Pettis
done it
before.
No one had ever submitted
him. No one had ever submitted him.
Never.
And Shavkat did it with relative ease, by the way. Mm-hmm. So this guy's going to be a problem. He's going to fight for the belt, and he's probably going to win the belt when he does. So let's go to KO of the year. I don't think we're going to see Shavkat's name on this one, but a lot of very good knockouts this year. A ton of them, actually. This is a hard one. This is a hard one to actually land on because there were so many really good knockouts. AK, we'll start with you. Top 5 knockouts, go 5-1.
All right, let's start with me. Number 5, Gaeth G. Poirier. Probably I have this too low. I bet this is at least top 3 on most people's lists. I mean, 2 of the best, most exciting lightweights of all time, 2 of the best knockout artists in MMA, and then one guy just head kicks the other. It's what's not to love. It's phenomenal. It's a phenomenal finish. So could be higher. Number 4. I forgot the other guy's name now, but Chihiro Suzuki versus who did he beat?
Vugar Karamov.
Vugar Karamov. It's a crazy knockout from bottom position. It's not just, and he lands an up kick, and it's not just the up kicks. It's he up kicks him and then cracks him with a whole bunch of other stuff before the guy is just finally out unconscious. It wasn't even Suzuki's biggest win of the year. I mean, it's his win over Patricio Pitbull kind of flew under the radar. That's one of the bigger upsets, probably the biggest upset of 2023. But as far as just aesthetics, the knockout of Karamov is absolutely ridiculous. Number 3, again, maybe too low. We just saw this, Josh Emmett and Bryce Mitchell. Maybe I'm being a soy boy. I'm a little too soft. The convulsing after might have turned me off, but there's no arguing with that one punch shot. I mean, I think the other aspect of it was I was concerned about the matchup as soon as it was made, because I'm like, Bryce Mitchell doesn't really have great striking, and Josh Emmett doesn't lose to grappling specialists. It's not like he has amazing takedown defense, but if you look at his losses, he only loses to other strikers, which was not Bryce Mitchell. So I thought Bryce Mitchell was in trouble. I had no idea how much trouble he was in, and we kind of saw, and it was scary and definitely memorable. Number 2, again, I went another one, aesthetics. No real big stakes here, but Krzysztof Glowacki versus Patrick Tolkajewski. This is the punt knockout, again, from bottom. Maybe guys knocking each other from bottom is my thing this year, but he was fully mounted. Glowacki was fully mounted and knocks out the guy on top of him. Yeah, it's probably low-level MMA. This is in KSW, by the way, again, which has some great fights and also still has some freak show fights. So this is probably like a weird freak show type thing. I understand. It's not making anyone's top technique of the year, but I just have never seen someone get knocked out in mount position before. It was bizarre. Number 1, not much explanation needed, and I'm sure I'll be on your guys' list too, so you guys can elaborate more if you want to. But Israel Adesanya, the revenge knockout of Alex Pereira, the moment, the celebration, what it meant for Izzy and his career, unforgettable, and aesthetically very pleasing as well.
Casey, what's your list look like? Is it vastly different from AK's?
Not vastly different, but I think we had different ways to get there. At least I guess our criteria for me, KO of the year, essentially all, unless it's an important fight. There's so many amazing KOs all year that I can't just put every random LFA. Oh my God, this guy did a spinning heel hook off the light post, knocked him out, So so everything's kind of important fights. The only one that's kind of just a normal fight, I'm going very recent. Number 5, Josh Emmett murdering Bryce Mitchell with one punch. Just one of the hardest single shot punch knockouts I've ever seen in mixed martial arts at a decently high level. So that was just unreal. Number 4, because of the significance to his career and emotionally what it hit us, Robbie Lawler knocking out Nico Price. Just wow, you were there. We all saw it. We had little tears of violence going, oh wow, Robbie murdered a man on his final walk. Yeah, it was great. Number 3, I love this knockout because it meant so much to his career and the high stakes of it and the $1 million paycheck I think he got from it. Patchy Mix with the submission specialist, Patchy Mix, with a step-in knee knocking out Rufian Stotts, just out cold. Wow. Number 2, in the main event in Ryzen for the featherweight championship, AK mentioned this earlier, Chihiro Suzuki knocking out from the bottom Karamov. Just an incredibly unique knockout from his back, up kick, knocks him out. But that we've seen that before. But what made it so extra unique is that the ref wasn't even sure what happened. And honestly, if you're watching real time, you can't really tell. It looks like he got hit, kind of rocked. His opponent falls into Suzuki's guard, and Suzuki lands, I think, 18 unanswered shots to Karamov from his guard. I've never seen anything like that before. And like, pop, 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 pop. It was just wild to watch. Please look for it. It's an unbelievable knockout between 2 high-level featherweights and a very high-stakes fight to the main event in Ryzen for their championship. But number 1, where to go? It's easy for me. Izzy knocking out Alex Pereira to regain his middleweight belt. We've seen knockouts before. That was just the storyline, the celebration, the violence of it, the technique. It had everything. It was, to me, unquestionably the knockout of the year.
Yep, that's mine as well. Adesanya Pereira. I gave Josh Emmett number 2 on my list because, I mean, any other year that's probably winning. So Josh Emmett number 2 against Bryce Mitchell. I went Robbie Lawler, Nico Price number 3 for all the reasons you said, Casey. I went with Chihiro Suzuki versus Karamov number 4. On my top 10, Suzuki was in 2 spots in my top 10. The knockout of Patricio Pitbull was actually in my top 10 as well. That was a pretty brutal knockout. Number 5, this was tough for I probably spent 3 hours on this. For 2 hours and 57 minutes, it was Justin Gaethje versus Dustin Poirier. But then after going through and watching the knockouts real quick one more time, that moved to number 6. Number 5 goes to Drakkar Klose versus Joe Selecki. The slam KO right on his friggin' face, knocked him just completely unconscious. And then, I mean, we just haven't seen one of those in so long. They're so rare. And then we found out we got another one to fight Langer. We got one in the next fight from Cody Brundage. But this one was just nasty. The sound of Joe Selecki's face hitting that canvas was just nasty. So I gave it to Drakkar Klose, the number 5 spot. But it seems like Adesanya and Pereira is pretty solid pick there. But I love the patch.
Great kind of comeback moment for Drakkar too, who like hasn't been able to stay healthy. And really isn't known for highlight reel finishes. This is, like, I think, by far the biggest highlight reel finish of his UFC career. There's quite a few decisions in there. Not bad fights, just decisions. So I think he kind of gets lost in the shuffle of lightweight, but he should get a ranking sometime this year with one more big win. And that made a huge statement to close out 2023. That was awesome. But you guys both have...
I've never seen a knockout. Like, we've seen slam knockouts from submission
that was
before.
Weird.
But the fact that I think it was from an arm bar and from the side. I've never seen a guy hit his head on the side and knock himself out cold. And if a high level submission specialist like Selecki too was good call. I was very close to putting that too, number 5 too. I was very close.
And we've all banged the side of our heads against something before. We've all banged our heads against something. We've all fallen, probably banged our heads. To see someone like do it in the middle of a fight, like, and forcefully drive someone else's head into that very, very hard canvas was, that's tough. It's tough to watch. It was almost as bad as, honest to me, to watch, like almost bad as the Emmett Mitchell knockout. It was crazy. Yeah, but in a different kind of way. I should warn you guys. I may be disowned or fired by Shaheen Al-Shadi because he was very upset. I did not have the Lawler KO on there. I don't think I don't think he appreciated when he said, "How could you not put this on there?" And my only response was sentimental pap. He did not. I don't think he'd like that. He's not happy about it.
Well, see, now you never know how these awards are going to go. So just because we're saying what we're saying does not mean how things are going to go. So I think we have like 6 other people weighing in on this. So this could go a number of different ways. So let's go to the fighter of the year, gentlemen. Let's go to fighter of the year. A lot of different ways. I will say, to me, the top 3 were very obvious. It was pretty clear. The final 2 were tough for me. It was a lot of switching out, a lot of overthinking, but I went a whole bunch of different directions. Really, 1 and 2 could go 2 different ways. I'm super curious to see how this all plays out. But Casey, I'll start with you. Fighter of the year. Top 5. Let's start with number 5 and go up to number 1.
Oh, it might be controversial. I wasn't ready to start first. All right, number 5. Number 5 fighter of the year is Tom Aspinall. Number 4, Alexandra Pantoja. Number 3, going 4-0 this year, Larissa Pacheco.
Ooh.
Number 2, with one of the biggest upsets in UFC history, Sean Strickland. And my number 1 fighter of the year is Patchy Mix.
Whoa! All right, this list
I like it.
It's a good list.
Tell him, Casey.
All over the place. If this is Family Feud, I would have got 3 strikes for sure. 3 strikes for sure. Love it. I'll go through mine. I do have Patchy Mix on my list. He is my number 5. I have Tom Aspinall on my list. He's my number 4. Number 3, despite before all the awful post-fight stuff and just how bad he's been since this win, I did put Leon Edwards at number 3. 2 title defenses. I don't even know if anybody else had 2 title defenses this year, right? I can't think of anybody else in the UFC.
Grasso.
No, she won it.
2 wins though. Yeah, she won it and then had a draw.
You
but
said
2
title defenses.
It's a defense. It's a defense. Yeah, she didn't defend. Yes. She won it and then defended it.
Yeah. Yes. I see what you're saying. Sorry.
Yeah. Title fight wins. Title fight wins. Man.
Yeah. Did anybody else defend a title twice this year? in the UFC?
So.
Volk? Not Volk. Islam.
Oh, Islam. Yeah, Islam. Technically,
Islam.
yeah, Islam.
Yeah, against Volk. You're right.
Yes.
You're right.
Yeah.
Well, that leads me to Islam. That's why he's my number 2 fighter of the year. Number 1, I just couldn't go any other way. I said it right after UFC 293. It is the middleweight champion. It's Sean Strickland. I mean, I don't know how I can't pick him. This dude entered the year coming off a loss to Jared Cannonier, steps in on short notice to fight Nasruddin Imavov at 205, wins convincingly, fights Abus Magomedov in July, runs him in round 2, and then gets a title shot against Israel Adesanya, and he thumped up Israel Adesanya, thumped him up like nobody else has done in the UFC. Like, I know Jan has a win over him. I know Pereira had a 5th round TKO over him in a fight that Izzy was winning heading into that final round, but pillar to post, bell to bell, this was the Sean Strickland show. The impact this guy made this year encapsulates everything Sean Strickland is. This was the Sean Strickland year for the sport, and I just couldn't go any other way here. Sean Strickland is my fighter of the year. AK, what say you?
Casey, did you have Islam?
I did not have Islam.
I did not either. I did not
really?
either. I know. Okay, good. So Casey and I can share the hateful comments in the YouTubes. I'm not looking at the comments right now, but I'm sure people bring it on. Bring it on. That's right. Neither Casey nor I have MMA Fighting's number 1 pound for pound fighter in the world on our list of. I guess we can explain that after. Let's go to who's on the list first. Number 5, I had to go to DDP. I almost didn't put him because I will tell you guys, of course, Strickland is on the list because I was probably trying to keep this like one person per division. Not that that's how anyone should make their list. That's kind of just how I was doing mine. But boy, DDP, his profile increased drastically during this year. And I just had to remind people, like, people thought a lot of people were saying he had no chance against Robert Whittaker. In hindsight, now everyone's saying like, oh, it made sense. Look at this. He always had a chance. I think even our own Jed Meshew, who was all in on wanting DDP to fight Izzy, like just get the Izzy title shot right away, was like, I think he hated that he had to fight Whittaker. He's like, oh, what a waste. Whittaker's going to kill him. We just lost DDP versus Izzy. Little did we realize we'd lose DDP versus Izzy for other reasons, but that's how little a chance people were giving. Even people who were fans of Dricus du Plessis were like, well, this is not good. He's going to get killed by Whittaker. And instead he ran through Whittaker and now could be the middleweight champion within the next 4 weeks. Number 4, Casey, I also had to go PFL, but I'm super biased and went with my fellow Canadian, Olivier Aubin-Mercier. I'm giving him points for retiring after, which sounds stupid, but he's just written such a great second act for himself as an MMA fighter because he had some good wins in the UFC. He was ranked by the UFC at some point, not in the top 10. I think his highest he got was maybe 13, 14. And that was it. And then after that, leaves the UFC, and we all I think a lot of fans kind of feel, oh, well, there's another Canadian guy who's not going to be the next GSP. He's not going to be the next Roy McDonald. He's not going to be the next whatever. But he found his own way, and he apparently was perfectly suited to the PFL tournament format. Wins at the $1 million last year, wins another $1 million this year, wins over Shane Burgos and Clay Collard, I think are very good. I rank them highly, plus his other 2 wins during the season. So 4-0, gets the $1 million, rides off into the sunset with his head held high. OAM, please stay retired. Don't come back because otherwise I may regret this vote, but my number 4. Number 3, Alex Pereira becoming light heavyweight champion. It is strange that, yes, the man who was the number 1 knockout victim of the year is also one of my fighters of the year, but I don't know what else to say about a guy who became 2 division champion, whatever his 10th, 11th fight. It's crazy at this point. Number 2, I don't know if anyone else even has this person on their list. Alexa Grasso. I'm so high on Alexa Grasso's year. Should I talk about the fight now? Because I think a lot of reasons people left her off was that they felt the second Shevchenko fight was scored wrongly, which technically it was. But if you watch the fight, it's very easy to make a case that Grasso won that fight. In the moment, I scored a 2-4-5 Grasso. I think anyone who scored it for Grasso, that's how they went with it. You had to. You couldn't give her 1 and 3. 1 and 3 were Shevchenko rounds.
Yeah, I scored it for Grasso too, regardless
of
the score.
Yeah. What screwed up is that one of the judges gave Shevchenko round 4, and then I think to make up for it, I think because they felt that Grasso shouldn't lose the title, they gave her a 10-8 in round 5, which again, I rewatched. I think is very unjustified. I don't know how you give Grasso a 10-8 in that round. So by the scoring, yes. But if it had been properly scored the way the judges were doing it, Shevchenko probably should have won a split decision. As it was a split draw, and Grasso retained. But in my opinion, I think Grasso won. I think a lot of people are okay with that. I would hope so anyway. So for me, at the very least, she went undefeated twice against the best flyweight that we've seen in MMA. The first upset was just thrilling, and the second fight is so awesome, and Grasso fought really well, whether you think she won or not. So that's my number 2. And number 1, Sean Strickland. Love him or hate him. You know, you can disagree with his opinions. I find most of his opinions pretty heinous, most of his trash talk pretty dismal. But if we're talking about in cage, he did the damn thing, man. What a performance against Israel Adesanya, in addition, of course, to the 2 wins he had before to land himself an unlikely title shot in the first place. And he goes into 2024. If he beats DDP, probably fights at least 1 or 2 more times. We could be seeing him on the list again next year. Maybe not at number 1, but maybe another top 5 appearance. And if you had told me this at the end of 2022, I would have said, what the hell are you talking about? We're never going to talk about Sean Strickland this much. But here we are. And he earned it in the cage.
What a world. Will Sean Strickland be MMA Fighting's 2023 Fighter of the Year? We will find out. We will see what happens. This is why award season, when you have this many panelists, who the hell knows what could happen? This is what makes it very exciting. So we're about to wrap up here. Thank you, gentlemen, for your opening of the book, so to speak. Next week, we will not be on video. Jed and I will be podcast only next week. We will do our annual promotional airing of grievances. Yes, we will judge the UFC. We will judge the PFL. We will judge one. Maybe we'll give a final judging to Bellator as well. The good, the bad, the grades, all of it. It's one of my favorite shows to do, and it's the show that I get the most shit from people who work within said promotion. So it's a good time. We're real. We're honest. That's how it is. We'll have our award show. I think it's dropping on the 27th. I think our awards are going to start, the articles anyways, on Monday. And then that's it. I'm off like all of next week starting tomorrow. So I'm going to get through tomorrow. We're going to do some last minute stuff with Jed for BTL. And then I'm off till 2024. So for all of you guys who have been watching the show live every week, I really appreciate it. There's people within the media space that you want to see on the show. Let me know. I think I've done my best to get everybody you've asked for on the program. We got fucking Luke Thomas on MMA Fighting this year. We got Luke Thomas on MMA Fighting this year. Twice, not once, but twice. So let me know who you guys want on, and we will do our best to get them on next year. Casey, you can hit the music. Thank you all very, very much. Appreciate you. Hope you all have a wonderful holiday season. Have a Merry Christmas if you celebrate. Have a Happy New Year if you're taking the rest of the year off as well. You guys are the best. For AK, for Casey, I am Mike Heck. Back in 2024, BTL Live on YouTube. Until then, thank you very much. The iconic voice of Esterlin takes you home. Good night, everyone.
This has been Between the Links, an MMA Fighting production on the Vox Media Network.